The FEMA plans to imprison American citizens have generated a lot of interest around the country in locating the potential prison camps throughout the country, or facilities that have other uses but which could be quickly used to detain large numbers of people, such as this Amtrak facility in Beech Grove, Indiana. All of these apparent security measures are particularly unusual here because this is a very low crime area and this facility is nothing but an old train repair station with nothing in it worth stealing. In this portion of the parking lot is a brick building, suitable for processing, next to a gate that leads right out to the railroad tracks, and all of this is contained inside a fully fenced area, now 3 layers deep in fencing at this point. This U.S. Air Force train indicates federal and military involvement. Facing the opposite direction, you can see that this area, too, is a very large fenced area with railroad track running the length of the fence and plenty of warehouses. This small building is the only way into a particular fenced area. Inside this building, we see more of the motion-activated detectors, electronic turnstiles, and prison bars. Outside this building is fencing and a cattle run section of fence, all topped by barbed wire, pointing inward, not to keep people out, but to keep people in. On the other side of the building, you'll see signs that say Red Zone, right up next to the railroad tracks that run the length of the fenced area. Next to the Red Zone sign, you can see closely numbered markers on the fences that are too closely spaced to be parking markers, just as if they plan to have people line up to board the trains. Looking around, you can get an idea of how huge this place is and how many people it could contain in its fenced-in area. In yet another fenced area, we see a large warehouse building at the end, with the electronic turnstiles in front of it. The building is one that has a new concrete floor, and its doors and windows have all been blocked. Outside, there are new gas pipes. Even as we were filming, a black helicopter flew over us, observing what we were doing, which has happened many times when we have been at the facility.
The Holy Spirit, the source of all truth. The Spirit of God is the Spirit of truth. You have to go for the Spirit of truth. We have to learn who we truly are, where we truly came from. And yet, look at most religions today. Oh, don't study any other religions. Don't listen to anybody else. Here's the dogma. Accept this. Have faith. Just believe in this. They are blocking the Holy Spirit. They are committing the unforgivable sin of stopping the search for the truth. You, me, William, everybody listening to this program, we're opening our minds. We're trying to find out what's true. We're trying to find out what's really going on. We are working in the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God's truth. Now, I say, hey, sound like a Baptist preacher, but, man, there it is. To me, it's just so clear. You know, you question everything, but don't stand in the way of the Holy
Spirit, the ones they call evil and say we're pagans and blasphemers and everything. And yet, I might add, just in the most popular Christian thing that appeared in recent years was The Passion of the Christ. And I watched that film, as difficult an experience as it was for someone who really has a genuine love of Christ. And I never saw in it the words, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." They left that out. And therefore, the Passion of the Christ was a monstrous blasphemy, because that is the message from the cross. That is the message that raises the human spirit. It is next to the message of the resurrection itself. It is the single most important message that Christ left for us, and they left it out, because without it, you can come into contact with all of the darkness, the hate, the prejudice that lies down in the depths of your own soul. And so I thought to myself, the demon has done this, and the demon rules the millions. This radio program. This will be heard probably about 2,000 or 3,000 people in the subscribers section of Unknown Country. Downloaded and given to friends, it comes out to about 15,000 people. How many people will listen to the message of the resurrection of the Christ? 90 million people. Now, does that mean that this winnowing is actually taking place before our eyes? That people are being identified as to who seeks the truth and who seeks the death of the soul?
I think that pretty well sums up the battle of good versus evil that's taking place right now. It's not people with turbans on their head versus sandy-haired wasps. It's not Muslims versus Christians. It's none of that. People all over the world who seek the truth, who value the truth, who work for the truth, who try to live in the truth, they are the ones that are living as the words that Jesus spoke. The ones who try to put a cap on the truth and say, well, now don't listen to any of that, and don't listen to that enemy propaganda, and don't listen to that other religion, those are the people who are committing the unpardonable sin of blocking the Spirit of truth, which is the Spirit of God, which is also called the Holy Spirit.
William, what is the Holy Spirit?
Well, in the Bible, it's referred to as manna. It's referred to as dew. It's referred to as a heavenly substance. And, you know, I make it a practice when I'm doing presentations, Willie, and very often I'll have people that have a very strong Christian background, many, many years of Sunday school, and they're not authorities on the religion, but they've certainly been in it for half of their adult lives. And I'll ask them a very simple question. How did Jesus transmit the Holy Spirit to the disciples? And I'll tell you, Whitley, if there's 50 people in the audience, maybe one or two will know of the Christians that are there. He breathed on them. And the question that is never asked and certainly never taught in Christian circles is, what did he breathe on them? And it's when we go back into the ancient world and we look at, for example, the mystic pharaoh Akhenaten, who breathed upon his daughter and breathed into her eyes and breathed into her nostrils the breath of life. We're talking about a very ancient science of whereby the individual learns to attune themselves with the highest vibrations coming from the source, which we are suggesting here could be the center of our Milky Way galaxy. The Holy Spirit is a transmittable substance that one has to learn to attune themselves with. And when that happens, they become what the Gnostic Christians in the 13th and 14th century called illumined ones. And this was a title that was ascribed in particular to Mary Magdalene. She was given the gift of the Holy Spirit, and as a consequence, she was given the title the Illumined One, the Illuminator. And the text describe her as literally giving off the glow ray of God. Now, you have preachers all the time on TV talking about the glow ray of God. You're in God's glow ray. But they have no idea whatsoever what the glory of God refers to, that it in fact is evidence that a person has attuned themselves with these higher energies, perhaps even these very radio waves that we've been talking about on Dreamland and are now discussing once again, that once we are attuned with those glow rays, we literally emit light from within ourselves.
And that's why that years ago when the New Age movement kind of got started, and I kept hearing people talk to me about the higher frequencies, okay? And this whole thing came up about frequencies, and I couldn't understand it at that time, and I'm not claiming to totally understand it now, but we're talking about the vibrational rate of the energy of the universe. And so I think this is exactly what we're talking about, and what we're saying here is like William has, you talked about how we're coming together here, and I guess we are, but I assure you I have not worked with William, and William has not worked with me, and I've kind of approached this from a 50s, 60s science foundation, and William has approached it from the study of ancient records and of ancient theologies and all like that, and yet they seem to be dovetailing quite nicely right now in my mind. What about you, William?
Oh, I totally agree, Jim. And, as you mentioned earlier, what this time appears to be all about right now is capturing an essence, a vibration that comes from the heavens that was referred to in ancient times as manna, dew, the Holy Spirit. And once this vibration, the Holy Spirit, comes upon the planet, it uplifts all who understand how to embody it. And when you've got a religious and political authority on the planet that is seeking to withhold that knowledge from you, you have to ask, why are they doing it? As Jim mentioned, it's power and control. But I don't know, I just am getting the sense that this is going to be just an awesome wave of energy that's about to pour over the planet, and it's going to cause a major blossoming, I feel, of millions of people, some possibly spontaneously, but there's going to be many, many others that are right now on this path of learning how to make or to operate this flower of life that our soul inhabits that we call the human body.
William, you mentioned something in Dreamland about the pineal gland and what we need to do with or to the pineal gland. Could you elaborate on that?
Certainly. When you look at numerous examples of ancient art, they will show a goddess, for example, Mari, who's standing in front of a tower that is topped by a pine cone-shaped object. It looks like a rocket on a silo. But what it really is it's our pineal gland sitting right dead center in our brain. And what we're beginning to learn and understand, as did the alchemists and some of the mystics of the past, that pineal gland can be stimulated by various substances. And when it is stimulated, it becomes what is called the philosopher's stone. And primarily what the philosopher's stone is the pineal gland's ability to remove the interval of time in between a thought and an action. That is the philosopher's stone, so that ultimately what it means is that you think a thought and the actions are the same. Presently, I think the thought of picking up the cell phone that's on the table in front of me, and it takes a moment for me to reach out and pick it up. As these energies begin to pour on the planet and our pineal glands are encrusted, as I call it, or decalcified, as science calls it, when the crust comes off the pineal gland, it's